Hello, my name is Alexis Jones, and I'm going to be answering the questions from the third discussion board and using Chapter 3 as support for some of my answers. So the third discussion board, the prompt is describing how a classroom comprised of fourth graders, they're expected to be learning a unit about symbols. And when the teacher is asking these introductory questions and trying to see, doing a check on learning, trying to see where it is that the students are at and whether or not they have any prior knowledge about this topic, the students, some of their answers are a little off and they don't really have any prior knowledge. So the first question is, what do these students' reaction tell us about the children thinking? This tells us, in one of the students, they said symbols are the things that his sister or cousin or whatever it was, the things that they use in the band. So this kind of tells us that their thinking right now isn't as creative. Their thinking right now is very literal, and they're having a little bit of trouble in being able to associate objects with other things and feelings and those kind of things. So the approach to this unit would have to be considering that these students are not developmentally where they need to be as far as understanding this concept. Because fourth graders, they're typically between 9 and 10 years old. So at this point, the pre-operational stage of development, the expectation for that is that children around 7 years old are developing language, and they're beginning to use those symbols to represent objects. So they may have difficulties in other areas of learning, but at the age of 7, they should be able to kind of begin to grasp this concept. So I think that we need to keep that in mind, and also keep in mind some of the schemes that are explaining that mental systems and categories are really truly based off of perception and experience. So they may be lacking in that area. What more would I do to listen to my students' thinking so that I can match my teaching level to their level of thinking? Like I said, I think it's really important to note that their thinking wasn't as creative. It was very literal, and they're having a hard time kind of being able to make that association and use more of an imagination when looking at these objects rather than just seeing it for what it is. So I think that we would probably begin by using emotions. Like a heart would represent what? Love. Just some of those more simple concepts for them to grasp. So how would I give my student a concrete experience with symbolism? I would say kind of what I spoke about in my last answer. Like I said, just beginning at that 7-year-old level of understanding for the association of objects with different emotions and concepts. Perhaps emotions, especially because that's something that's fairly simple, and it's pretty easy for one to make those kind of connections. And as time goes on, to kind of build up to maybe more significant things, like how they said, like, what would the Statue of Liberty represent? And those are things that are really textbook. So that would kind of bring in that memorization piece to it. Or what does the American flag represent? And then kind of beyond going from like a textbook answer to kind of more so asking them to use their imagination. What does it represent to you? So I think using prompts like that, what does it represent to you? That may be a good place to begin to, beyond just like some of the more basic symbols. How will I decide whether the students are developmentally ready for this material? I think that just going off of, like I said, the kind of introducing that creativity piece to it, I think that that'll give us a better idea of whether or not they're able to understand this concept, and if it is developmentally something that they're able to do on a larger scale beyond just like I said, like emotions or shapes and things like that. So like I said, just using those kind of prompts, like what does this mean to you? What would this represent to you? I think that whether or not they're able to truly like explain the feelings that an object or picture is invoking in them, whether or not they're able to do that and express it pretty clearly, I think that that'll really give us a good idea of whether or not this is a lesson that they're going to be able to truly understand.